So this week, Mo, we are trying to think through with our Future Leaders Programme participants here and with our wonderful guest speakers, what the real and realistic priorities are for African governments, businesses, civil society organizations, and others in what's a very, very turbulent world, a world of high levels of uncertainty, sharp declines in foreign aid, trade blockages real and threatened, and for some countries, multiple sources of security threats as well. And I can't think of anybody with a more unrivaled knowledge of the continent and its leaders than you, Mo. And so we wanted to ask you what you think are the highest priorities. So if we start with aid, you've recently argued that the decline of traditional foreign aid should be treated less as a crisis and more as a wake-up call. And I think my question is anybody hearing the alarm clock? Are there leaders who are jumping up out of bed and responding to that wake-up call?
Well, first, I'm happy to be here. And you see, I'm going to have a tough time. I mean, this guy said he will have one question, and he asked it like 10 questions. And so allow me, I'm going to take off my necktie to get ready for this. It's not going to be easy. I told you guys it's going to be formal, and it was, so I don't usually put a necktie, but anyway. Right. To start with, you asked about our priorities. I think the number one priority we need in Africa today is peace. In Africa today, we have 17 violent conflicts, 17 wars raging in Africa. And do you guys want to talk about development when countries are on fire? What development? Yeah? In one country, Sudan, we have 12 million internally displaced people. We have 2.5 million migrants. We have tens of thousands, maybe over 130,000 people who were killed, women raped, all kind of crimes committed there by Sudanese people. And do you think there's any development gonna go? Anything will happen in Sudan? Will anybody invest anything in Sudan? We are destroying the little we have. We're going backward, not forward. So, and this is not only in Sudan. I mean, you look around, look at the map, and you'll find that 17 countries have really violent fighting taking place there, conflicts. So that's more than 1/3 of the countries in Africa. And I was so surprised when the African Union annual big meeting decided that the core discussion will be about water. Is that water to douse the fires out, or what You guys have 17 words and you're not talking about this? No discussion about this. It is very sad. And the world is not paying attention to this. What's happening in Sudan is more terrible than what's happening in Nigeria, in Ukraine, or in Gaza. Mm-hmm. Right? The number of the victims or what's happening there. I open the newspaper in the morning and Ukraine this, Ukraine that, Ukraine. Yeah, okay, I sympathize. I feel really supportive of Ukraine. I'm sorry for them. But the people in my country are suffering much more than that, and nobody talking about this. Even us Africans. So when the African Union meet, even our leaders, they were talking about water and sanitation. Yes, it's important, but that's not the core issue facing us now. So I will say that is the first priority. We need to silence the guns. And we need to deal with these issues of all this armed conflict. Why they happen? Because there is no way forward. And the role of the military or paramilitary or militias in Africa is just gone out of hand. How much we spend of our meager resources on those armies and this, what for? Exactly what an African army is doing. Can somebody tell me a single African army did anything useful, anything meaningful, defended anything? Those armies should be in the border. But no African countries attacking other African countries. Yes, forget about Eritrea and Ethiopia. That's a siblings issue anyway. But otherwise, no countries attacking each other. And if that's an issue, okay, you take at the border. But those guys just come to the capital, you want to take the thing, and then they shoot us. Why? So that will be my top priority in Africa. Silence the guns, because nothing will happen. As well, we will have war. And a war in a country does not only affect that country. Okay? How many millions of Sudanese now are in Cairo, are in Chad, are in Uganda? So Chad is a little country with very little resources, etc. It got about 1 million Sudanese refugees. 1 million refugees in Germany. That huge country, which is economy, is bigger than the whole economy of Africa, ended Merkel's career. Yeah, that's what happened. And this little country is hosting women, and that's a big problem. Egypt, same situation. And so a conflict affects actually the whole region. And this, we need really to raise that issue all the time. We need to find a way to stop these wars in Africa. And you go to the map after this and check. You'll find there are 17 conflicts, wars going on in there. It's not only the Sahel. Everywhere. You look at the east, you look west, you look Mozambique, everywhere we have that. And it's just not acceptable. Anyway, so that I will say that the first priority facing Africa is we need to live in peace. Then we can talk about development, we can talk about any other issue, tariffs or whatever. But first we need to have peace. And it's in our hands, because it is us killing each other. It's not colonialists coming and killing Africans. It's not. It is us killing each other. You guys are crazy. What's going on? Anyway, so that one issue. Second one, I think, is very important for Africa, is the common market. We live really in a very, I would say, a difficult era. Yeah? This is like a jungle now, right? And we need to find a way to really survive in this very hostile environment when the strong dictates and the weak suffers. Yeah? We need to find a way. And we can still imagine that we are 54, 55 countries, and each one of these little countries can go along, sit across the table from the Chinese and negotiate something with them. Yeah, you cannot. What the president of Chad or Togo or this or that can go and they sit and negotiate with Trump or with European Union or with, you cannot. They eat you alive. All what he can do is go and beg. So you guys want to be beggars? I mean, now, we need to understand that unless we are able to negotiate and to work as a continent, then really we are going nowhere. Because most of our countries are subscales. This is true. Most of our countries are really subscale. It doesn't work. And imagine if you have something like United States of Africa. I think that is a distant thing, but imagine. You see how much heft you're going to have as a continent. Today we have 54 embassies in Washington, 54 delegations in UN, 54 embassies in Beijing, 54. What is this? How much that is costing us? What are those guys doing anyway? Who care about your ambassadors over there? You are little countries. I mean, do you think anybody, what your embassies are doing over there? Nothing. It just costs us a lot of money. We need to have just one embassy representing us, and that's it. Then at least people can listen to you, understand you. But the most important is the ability to trade with ourselves, to cut the barrier. You compare Africa with China. On Independence Day for China or Africa, China liberated or became independent a little bit earlier. But we had the same, maybe better GDP than those guys. In Sudan, we had better GDP than South Korea, than India, than Singapore, than Malaysia, than Indonesia on independence. Where are we now? It's really a sad story. But look at the difference between, if you look at China, it's almost the same population like us. But people use the market power. Yeah? Now, you are Siemens, Ericsson, Nokia, or whatever. You want to come and sell one mobile phone in China? Yes, you are welcome, but you have to build a factory here. You have to do technology transfer here. And the market has power that people need to understand. Power of the market. And we have 1.3 million people here in China. You want access? You have to transfer your technology here. And guess what? In a short while, we'll be making better phones than yours. That's great. You want high-speed trains? Okay. Who got the best high-speed trains? Japan? In fact, the company which does the Shinkansen trains, yeah? Come and, oh, well, lovely. Can we have yes, you can have a contract in condition. We need the technology. Yeah? They got the technology. Now China have 24,000 kilometers of high-speed trains. Their network can go around the whole Earth. Yeah. We in Britain have been struggling for 20 years with one high-speed network between London, Birmingham, and Manchester. And they couldn't do it, so cut off Manchester and said to do it between London. That's 200 kilometers. This thing, the Chinese do it in a week. Come on. This is we have to learn. We have to learn from other people what they're doing and how. And where is the Japanese manufacturer of high-speed trains? It's gone. The guys who make the high-speed trains in the world now, the best, most efficient are the Chinese. Yeah. Wind turbines. The best company doing wind turbines was a Spanish company. And of course, we went to China. And in that case, actually, China stole the technology. And the EU started a case in WTO against the Chinese because they stole the technology. Guess what? The Spanish company called the EU, please drop the China. We don't want to upset the Chinese because we still have some little contracts. We don't want to lose business. Drop it. I'm happy they stole it from me. Now, who makes the world turbines everywhere? China. This is the power of the market. What Africa is losing is the power of the market. Why? Because we are 54 little countries who have no power whatsoever. You cannot force anybody to come and train you or to build factories in your countries or to transfer technology to you. This is the issue. And we need to find a way to move to that common market and create our market power. Yes, we made, after a long time, we made some steps with the trade agreement. It's very little and taking ages to be ratified. And even that was meant to help build the finances for the EU, which is something issue I come back to, because African countries are not funding the EU. You know that? The EU, we talk about African solutions for African problems, is funded by whom? It's funded by Europe. Yeah. So, I mean, guys, I mean, who built the headquarters of the African Union? China. Who's building the headquarters of ECOWAS now? China. Then you guys talk about African solution to African problem? Come on, give me a break. So we need to be serious, okay? Governance is a serious issue, and we need to address it with really serious one. Many countries actually don't even pay the little dues they should pay for the African Union. And this is very sad. So this is all the challenges we have for us. Other priorities, of course, is power. We don't have enough power. Half of our people don't have access to power. How can you have development without power? It's a problem. So that's an area, obviously, we need to do. In the financial and business side, there is a lot of stuff also need to be dealt here. We need to stop being mines for the world, just selling raw materials. We need to go up these leverage chains, and we keep all the, not only mines, all the raw materials. I mean, your cashew, the cocoa, everything. And you buy a bucket of cashew nut, and it is coming from India, it's coming from... but those guys don't do cashew nuts. Tanzania does. Why it comes from there? Because we cannot even process and package something simple like cashew nuts. I mean, that's not acceptable. We need to go up the value chain. We have the best diamond in the world. But where diamonds come from? They come from Rotterdam and recently from India. India don't have a single diamond. How come all these diamonds come from India and Israel? And come from India, Israel, and Rotterdam. Dutch don't have diamond mines. Or there's no. It's our diamonds. Why don't they create jobs and go up the level chair? That is the things we need to start to work on. I come to agriculture. We have 70% of the arable lands which is uncultivated. The food is irreplaceable. All of us have to eat. So why can't we address agriculture in a more effective way? And we try to move from this little household to something more productive. You know, you produce food not just to eat your children, but to sell some. Once you start to sell some, the whole economy changes. The whole economic of the household changes. But we need to make that move forward through whatever organization or message we need to do. That's important. What else we need to do there? Financially, I mean, we need to address seriously the issue of illicit financial flows. This is something we have been fighting for 20 years, and nothing happened in that area. You know, illicit financial flows, it is legal, actually. They made it legal. It is tax avoidance, really, mispricing and profit shifting. I tried to explain, but I thought you will know that. But if you don't, I'm happy to explain what people do. I mean, I'm a European producer, you are an African importer, and you want to buy this computer from me, the price is $1,000, and I say, okay, you tell me, invoice me for $1,500, and give me $400, and you can keep $100 for your trouble. We say, fine, invoice you and you go to central bank, get $1,500, you pay me, and then $1,500 come back. That one. Then you go back in the market, say, I bought this for $1,500, I need to sell it for $1,700 to make a reasonable profit. Yeah? Who pays at the end? Is the African citizen. Yeah? And money went out. This is a simple mispricing which is happening everywhere. They will claim that they have some IPR created in the Cayman Island or somewhere, as if there is a big research lab in Cayman Island, which I know there is none. And then they have royalties. The idea is to make sure the company doesn't make profit by anything, by any means. I mean, I have a Chilean economist the other day who was telling me a very interesting story. There was a mine there which never made a profit. Never made a profit, that mining company. And then one saw in the paper that is being sold, I think, for $1.2, $1.3 billion. I said, how come something making loss all the time be sold for this thing? So he decided to dig into this. And he told me what he found was quite amazing. The mine was bought by one of the major American energy companies. And in order to capitalize the operation, they did not put capital. They put a loan. And they put the loan from a subsidy in one of those exotic islands. But the interest on the loan was about 25%. When the interest rate was like 3% or 2%, interest was like 20-odd%. So the company was just sitting very happy, the owner is making 22% profit on their money every year, and that's a very decent margin of profit. And so, and of course, the company is losing money. It doesn't matter. That for the Chilean authority, the company is losing money. So no taxes paid, and those guys take net such amount of money. So this is just to tell you about the practices, and this issue have been raising it everywhere in the national meetings of this and that, and nobody paid attention. One day the French and the British woke up and said, oh, Apple, Google, those guys don't pay taxes here. Why? Then, they booked the sales to Ireland. Ireland had a sweet deal with them, and so they sell you this thing here in UK, but the invoice comes from Ireland. And so the payment goes to Ireland, the UK doesn't get anything. And those guys became upset. And even the Starbucks was quoted, all those guys doing this stuff. And then they woke up and said, oh, yeah, there's an issue here. I mean, this something going here. And then in the G20 meeting, which I think was in Australia, at last they said, oh, there's an issue. Let us deal with this illicit financial flow. Asked the OECD to do some reward. They did 5 volumes of reports on, they call it base erosion and profit shifting. You can check that and you can see them. And still, nothing happened. In the Africa-Europe Summit in Brussels 4 years ago, we raised that issue. The European Union committed to do something about it. Till now, nothing happened. It's all written, it's commitment. They have done nothing. So, but why do those guys not have nothing? Because most of the time it's good for the economy. Africa loses about 89, 90 billion. It's difficult to put an exact number. This is the estimate of UNICTAD, is about $90 billion a year. This almost double the amount of aid Africa getting. So we'll only say, look, guys, give us our money and keep your money. Yeah? Okay. Again, on the financial side, there's another issue which I really don't like. This habit of African countries giving tax holidays to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. I don't know why. Why they give tax holidays? Nobody gives tax holidays. Why the Africans give tax holidays to companies? We lose like 30, 40 billion a year on tax holidays. That's again If you stop tax holidays, that's the amount of aid you guys getting. And people need to understand what is tax. You only pay tax if you make profit, correct? Right. If I'm a businessman and I'm making a profit, fine, I'm happy. No. Africans insist, no, you're happy is not enough. You must be very, very, very happy. I'm going to give you a tax holiday, so you don't even pay tax. Thank you very much. You are very generous. Actually, you are very stupid. Not generous, you are stupid. That is something you guys need to go and raise these issues. No, we should not, this ripping the country from their tax income. And then we go back and say, we don't collect tax. Of course you don't collect taxes because you're giving all these holidays. That's an important issue, and nobody talks about it. I don't know why.
Because they're attracting investors.
Sorry?
Sorry for interrupting you. The idea is to attract investors, to encourage them to invest in our country so they create jobs for
look, nobody invests or disinvests because tax holiday. Yeah. Because you know what? This is another big issue. As investors in Africa, there's a great mistrust. And a lot of it also because of the ratings of Africa. You know, every African country is rated as subgrade. You know that. The only 2 countries which are of investment grade. So that's something the investor look at. When you look at that, they say, okay, I'm going to charge African premium. So I will not invest unless my profit is so much on this and that and whatever. Now, if he is making a profit and he passes his ratio, you should be happy. You don't have to give him a tax holiday. And it's a wrong assumption that these tax holidays, if we lose $40 billion a year in tax holidays, how much business have you attracted? Look at the inflow of investment in Africa. It's very little. So what did you attract with that? It doesn't work. Just forget it. These are issues, of course, we need to. The best advantage to if you want the investor to come, rule of law. You need to have rule of law. You need to have stability. You need to have safety. That is the issue. That is what investors look for. There is stability. There's clarity. I invest. Please.
I have a question, which is, one of the things we try to interrogate in these Future Leaders programs is, if something's going wrong, that you can identify that's obviously dysfunctional and anti-developmental, why does it continue year after year, decade after decade, even though most people in this room and most policymakers know it's anti-developmental for Africa? What do you think the motive? What's the political economy that drives the persistence of dysfunctionality?
Is that not what Einstein was described that the utmost stupidity is to do the same thing over and over and expect different results?
Right.
And he said that because people keep doing that for whatever. I have no answer, to be honest, why people keep doing stupid things when it doesn't work. I think we have a deficit also in leadership. We have a deficit in leadership.
So Mo, if there is a deficit of leadership, and these people are supposedly future leaders, you have to do some of them are actual leaders. What's your advice to them about how they can reduce that deficit?
Yeah, I think I suggested areas where you need to focus on. I think these are the areas we really need to focus on.
But they can identify areas, but they need to know ways of, in a sense, being quite courageous, because not everybody can talk to power the way Mo does, and can talk so straight.
But they're going to be the power, Chris. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be the leaders, you are the power. But you need to have a roadmap. You need to know what you're doing. The problem, you look at most of our leaders, where they come from. Frankly, how much preparation have we done? Yes, there's some good people, I admit that, but there are also some people who have no clue what to do. And this is a problem. And one concern I have also about the liberation movements in Africa. And the assumption that we liberate you, then we have to run you. Okay? And I don't think they have been great in governance. And it's very sad to see ANC stumbling, to see our friends in Tanzania ending up doing what they're doing. To look at Uganda, you look, I mean, even if they started well, then they, maybe Cote d'Ivoire, the only country which, but those guys introduced multi-party system immediately, and they lost the election. And the best thing for a liberation movement is to lose an election. That's why I hope one day, as soon NC loses an election, because it cannot cleanse itself while it's in power. I don't think so. It just have so many parasites, so many criminals, because they are in power. They give contracts, they do this, you have black empowerment, you have all tools, and money spoils people. And this is really unfortunate.
So there's the advice. If there's money, don't be spoiled by it. Okay, I'm going to tear up the plan, and I'm just going to open it to you now. You go ahead, yeah.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Ademola Oshigeson from Nigeria.
Where from?
Nigeria.
Nigeria, okay.
PhD student here at SOAS. Continental institutions, it will be my question. And I know that you've invested in some leadership programs like the African Development Bank. What's your opinion on the pathway to get our continental institutions to be more effective, especially in the context of 54 non-viable economies?
I think if we start to trust each other a little bit, you see, if you are a British guy or American guy, travel to South Africa or Kenya or this or that, you don't need a visa. Somehow we trust those guys. Just because you're a white guy with a foreign visa, we trust you. Another African guy coming, oh my God, you need 3 months to get a visa sometimes. I mean, I'm giving you an example about how complicated it is, because we don't trust each other. Sometimes we're afraid of each other. What for? And this is a problem. And what we need is really to get the issue of African unity again in the table. Okay? There was a time when Cramer came with his vision, and that was early on. And of course, nobody listened to him. And the famous story about in the plane back, one president was talking to another president and said, thanks God, they did not agree, so I still have my job. All we think about is his job. Because we think unity means I lose my job. We need to get over all this nonsense, all this personal agenda, all this, we are stronger together, and we are more prosperous together. And we need somehow to address our own people and tell them this. You should not be afraid of our neighbors. We should embrace them. And together, we can be much stronger.
You might say that in the European Union, the way we learned, and we haven't really got there, but we began to trust each other, is actually we fought each other. The EU is a solution to your first priority, peace. That's how the EU began.
Amazing.
It's a peace deal, and it began piecemeal with like a very practical thing, an agreement around iron and steel. And it grew and developed about that, and it took a long time.
Yeah, but they did it, and those guys, Europe have been a graveyard. How many world wars were fought in Europe? Yeah. They destroyed their countries twice in the last century. But even though they managed now to come together and do this and do that, yeah? And thanks to Trump, actually it's getting a stronger union now. Okay. Of course, Britain still has a problem, but we will not talk about our guests here, so we will not talk about England. But we Africans, we don't have that bad history with each other. So why can't we talk to our people, to our friends, our children, guys, let's come together. I wish to see a rise in the public opinion, a demand for us to act really on this, at least common market. Maybe political union is a problem, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But at least we can have some form of economic union. Just one market, that's all. And from there, things can develop. If you can do that, that would be a great service for Africa.
Zainab, you want?
Salma had something.
Salma, sorry.
Salma, you go first, then Zainab.
I just wanted to talk about the West African Union. Niger, Mali, Burkina,
Yeah,
Cote d'Ivoire.
ECOWAS, yeah.
Yeah, we are breaking down. Because that was unity. And you can see now that IOS has been formed.
Yeah, but why it's breaking down?
Yes, indeed. And the why of it is what I would like you to tell us your thoughts about. Because Cote d'Ivoire is now in a very tough place. Because it's being blamed, obviously, and it's a fratricide. It's like a fratricide. How do you say it in English?
Like brother,
Siblings separating, right? Because Burkina and Cote d'Ivoire are very linked. We have so many Burkinabés living in Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
And this now building up tension, this tearing away, this IOS is breaking down that unity. I think we don't have to look to Europe in many ways. We have it in West Africa under my nose. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, really, it happened because of the military coup. There's a reason. The military took over, and people talked about we need to use Article 4 and the African Union Constitution, and we need to restore the legal, especially in Niger. And the African Union did the right thing, of course, suspended all those generals of these countries under military rules, because that is the constitution of the AU. And people talk about military intervention. ECOWAS said, I deal with it, but they did not do it, for whatever reason, especially Niger, did not do it. And those guys then, for self-preservance, got together, obviously, and they pulled out of the union. So I told you before, when I started, I said those soldiers are up to no good. Yeah, that's the problem. Whenever you have soldiers, you have trouble.
Zainab?
Hello.
Hi, Zainab.
So my question is again on the Pan-African organizations and common Africa positions, but I want to approach it from a slightly different perspective. Clearly, this is a big issue. It's a big problem with so many dimensions. But maybe we just need to go back to the basics of problem solving. If you have a big problem, what do? You can allow it overwhelm you, or you can break it down into components that you can tackle one at a time. Maybe that's what we need to do with respect to getting African unity, not on everything all at once, because 54 countries and
Absolutely, yeah.
Nigerians don't even agree with one another, or Kenyans, not to mention Kenyans and Tanzanians, on and on. So, and starting with something very clear and very obvious, which is critical minerals. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is even on something as critical minerals right now, there's no coordinating entity. Can we start from that? Then the forward-looking solution is there a role that the Mo Ibrahim Foundation can play on that front on specific issues? You have the statue, you have the clout, and you have the convening power on specific issues to bring African countries together.
Yeah, Zainab, there is a political reality too. You have a corrupt leadership in Congo. If we talk about critical mineral, it is DRC. Okay, let's be frank. DRC, right? You talk about people don't know how to write contracts or how to do this is it. I remember 15 years ago, we had an initiative with Paul Collier from Oxford and some people from US. We produced a charter. Okay, I don't know if you have about about how to do the mining. And we said, what you do when you discover you have something. Here are the following steps you can do. And we produce that in 3 different versions. One is like an executive summary of 10 pages, because we know presidents don't read more than 10 pages. Then one like 100 pages for the ministers. And then one for the technocrats, which in absolutely detail what to do, what not to do. Okay? And that was given to everybody. Okay? And I was a member of that commission. We've done it. The question is how to get people to apply it. If you have a corrupt leader in DRC, and this guy wanted to give some of his contract to his family. There is a story in the paper the other day about his family involved, or get a kickback from another guy, or do this or that. What do you do? It is, again, it goes to the issue of good governance. And that's what we try to focus on, good governance, because we try in all this area. We try to work in the illicit financial flows. We try to work in the climate, because another issue is monetizing Africa's green assets, which we need to do something about. We're working on that. We worked on the mining and how to do that. And for a while, we worked with all these organizations dealing with mining. And the problem at the end is the credibility of the political leadership. Without credible, decent political, all the stuff we've done is of no use, unfortunately. I wasted so much time on this, and I just regret it, unfortunately. So there's something nice for the library here in SOAS, but...
I just wanted to generalize that point. When I was doing research on mining tax regimes in Africa, you'd be hard-pressed to find a public document in any African country outside of South Africa and Botswana that has in Namibia, that has a public accessible document over mining in gold, copper, oil, anything. You go to Angola, Nigeria, whoever. And that, I think addressing why that is a really important issue. You can call them corrupt, uncredible, but it seems to be a systemic feature of what ruling coalitions do across the continent. Yes. What are they hiding? What's the secret, and what function does that play in the political economy of holding ruling coalitions together? Because obviously it's a pattern, and as social scientists we want to try to identify these things. This is not a mistake. There are people that are benefiting.
No, it's intentional. It's intentional. And many of the agreements are secret. You don't know. They're all, and as Zainab said, what's close if you open, and that's one, it is confidential agreements. And this issue of accountability. That's why I think our focus really in our work should be try to improve governance. Without good governance, without good transparency, without accountability, without holding people accountable, whatever we publish, whatever we say, nobody will listen.
I guess a related question though is, we've seen maybe, regions of the world that have equally corrupt elites, but who for some reason do better, right? So, Indonesia, Nigeria comparison, if you think of the Gulf versus mineral-rich or oil-rich Africa, it's a happy medium to start with, where yes, we can accept that maybe some of the under-the-table deals are needed to keep elite coalitions together. But why aren't they playing on a higher plane, and how can we get them there? Because the problem of the DRC, right? It's a puzzle that the DRC hasn't minted billionaires in the resource sector. Even if corrupt billionaires, but Congolese, wealthy people, because they have not.
They're there, we just don't know.
They
just don't show their wealth.
But they're not as wealthy as they could be on a global scale.
All the past presidents past are billionaires.
But if,
How many billions Mobutu had stole? How many Chikasedi had? How many this guy? These all are billionaires.
but the
Not
point
only
is-
them, their families too.
Yeah, so the point though is that the wealth that Mobutu stole was, disappeared with him, right? So they make money, but it's not, wealth that can actually last and generate even more wealth in the economies. So the point is, how do we shift the focus so that you can do what elites all over the world do, but on a higher plane than
Yeah.
the little games that they play.
But listen, my friend, you know what? The problem with this corruption, it is not that Mobutu made $3-4 billion. You look at this $4 billion, they did not cost DRC $4 billion. They cost DRC $40 billion or $400 billion.
To make 40.
Because you're taking a sliver of the money. So the damage is huge. I don't worry about 3 million guys here or 3 million. Yes, it's a lot of money and illegal, but the result actually is huge. This is the money which we have lost because of these faulty agreements and this sleight of hand. And that needs to be dealt with. And I don't see any way to deal with that other than a political means. Those guys have to be out of power. There's no other, obviously, we need to have good leadership. We need people to be able to elect. And of course, they steal the election. I mean, this current Chekisedi guy, he did not win. The Catholic Church had all the data. Yes. And it's so sad that South Africa jumped up and said, oh, the African Union, no, but African Union wanted to go to stop them. For all its fault, at least in this instance, the African Union was brilliant. They said, don't declare the result because we are coming to discuss with you. And before that, Ramaphosa and his guys, oh, no, this is a SADC issue. We need to deal with it. And we ratify this election. This one criminal act by the South African government. And nobody talking about that. I'm the only guy who wrote an obit in FT at the time. I didn't know the other candidate. I never met him. I don't know him, but I said, this is the guy who's won, and you guys doing this and doing that. Next day I got a letter from the guy saying, Mo, I'm so grateful you wrote, because nobody ever stood up by me. I said, I'm not standing with you. I'm standing with the facts here, Anyway, but this is a problem. We pass. Samia in Tanzania, what she did, is that acceptable? Yeah, and then people go, oh yeah, let us, come on. So it's just we need to speak out. We need to make a stand. We should not let bad things go without challenging them. That is important.
It might be worth, it's interesting to think about the specifically political history of Indonesia that may be part of the background for combining corruption with a certain amount of pressure for doing things in the national interest. But we've got 2 questions over here, so why don't we take them, both of you? You go first.
So I think I've been waiting for about 2 years to ask you this question.
She said, that's it?
She's been waiting 2 years to ask you.
Why? You can send me an email. I mean, why 2 years?
I'm sure you know.
There's something called technology now, you can...
Now that I've met you in person.
Okay.
So,
Better be good.
I remember sometime in 2023, I believe it was at Morocco, Marrakesh, in the conversation with the World Bank president, where you had...
not our conference, the IMF conference at the World Bank, yeah.
Yes, where you had criticized the big 3 credit rating agencies, Moody's, Fitch, and S&P, specifically in your exact word, junk grade. So I remember sometimes in May last year, I was opportune to be at the African Union Public Debt Conference in Lomé, Togo, where the African Union had openly declared that they were working on an African
rating agency,
for Africa. And you immediately came to mind. So now that I have the opportunity to directly ask you, I want to know your thoughts on the African Credit Rating Agency.
Okay.
I personally think it's a distraction, not a solution. So I want to know if we are both on the same page.
Okay, can we hold that question and take yours?
Yes, I'm Lulu, I'm from South Africa. I wanted to speak about governance. I'm South African. We come from a country I come from a country that has all the right things in terms of governance on paper. We've got a great constitution, our
The best
judiciary works.
constitution.
Yeah, it's wonderful, but it doesn't actually quite translate to good governance. And I mean, with all the young people in the room, a lot of us are young, and most of us work in the public sector. We had the super year of elections last year. But I don't think that the case for leadership and governance are being made for young, ethical people. And so we find ourselves in these places where whether the constitution is strong or not, or the judiciary is strong or not, we're not actually filtering out the bad guys to get the best in places of governance. And I'm just wondering from your perspective, how do we even make the case to get the best, the cream of the crop in the rooms to make the decisions that we need to make? Because essentially we are struggling with, we have the ideas, we even have the institutions, we just don't have the right people, I think, at this point.
Okay, for the credit rating, yes, we have a big problem. And in Marrakesh, actually, we brought the representative of the rating agencies. Some of them were shy, didn't want to be in public, but some anyway, because we're having conversation with them and we say, look, the issue we have with them was they have presence in South Africa, and only one of the three agencies have a second office, I think, in Cote d'Ivoire or somewhere in West Africa, one office only. So we asked them, when you look at the parameters, how they do it, 50% of it is based on data, objective, but 50% are subjective, you know? So we say like, okay, data, we don't argue with data. We fans of data, we love data, okay? We cannot argue about data. But let's think about the subjective thing which actually undermines the data. Because you can see countries which have much lower debt, better this compared to the European country or somewhere, and they're still treated badly because of the subjective side. So we say, look, how could you be sitting in one place in Africa? Africa is huge, and pontificating about the stability, the political atmosphere in this country. What do you know? You don't speak the language, you don't read the local papers, you haven't set a foot in the country. How you judge that country? And so there is discussion going on. Some of our friends also in other, because we coordinate with different people, also having separate discussion with the rating agencies. Last week I was meeting with the Africa director of the Milken Institute, and she's also having, a wonderful lady, she's also American lady, she's having also conversation. So we compare notes with everybody. Because we need those guys to be transparent about the way we do thing and to prove what you're doing. As for the Africa Rating Agency, my problem with Africa Rating Agency is that if the objective here is to produce better ratings for Africa, then it's a self-defeating exercise. That's the problem, because the investor will not trust it. How you get the trust of the investor? You know? So I don't think, honestly, I don't think that. I think the good idea is to put the pressure on the rating agency and demand transparency. Nobody can argue against that. And we really corner, because when we say, look, we need transparency. Why are you secretive about this? Then they are back to the wall and they have to open their books. So I think we need to continue that pressure and try to improve what's going on. Creating an agency, which is going to cost us a lot of money actually, and nobody's going to, and it will not make money, because houses ready, because people pay to have access to the stuff. So if nobody subscribe to you, you're going to be a loss-making enterprise. Would I buy shares in this company? I would not, because you're going to lose money. Nobody will going to look at it. So it's a waste of time. This is similar to the position from ICC. You remember what happened with the ICC? At the time when the majority of judges in ICC were Africans, the prosecutor was an African, Fatou Bensouda. And because some African president was being pulled on trial, the Kenyan and the Sudanese guys, then they went to the Addis Ababa. This is a club of African presidents. And say, oh, those guys are targeting us. What do you mean target us? You are criminal. What do you mean you target us? Of course we target criminals. And oh, we need to create our own ICC then. And I remember the time we had a discussion with them about this African court there. And to my surprise, you wouldn't believe this. This court they created to replace ICC cannot try presidents or ministers or... So I asked them, I said, what is the purpose? I mean, if you want to try fishermen and taxi drivers, but there are courts who dealing with this. Why you go into trouble creating these courts? What's the point? You see, that is, again, the fallacy, you know, the strange decisions made by the club there.
African governments also, on their part, right, they need to be more transparent about the PFM practices.
Yeah.
Because it's the legibility question, right, is two ways. Yes, the big three need to invest in knowledge production in the various countries, but African governments also need to be a lot more transparent in how they run their budgets.
Absolutely, not transparency. We need rule of law. We need to create the right environment for investment. Absolutely, makes it easy. Not only foreign investment. In Africa, most African countries of informal sector almost rival the formal sector. Those guys then don't pay taxes. Yeah, you try to bring the informal sector into the formal domain, and you make it easier for people. You want to have a company, it's easy, it's free of charge. Come, be my guest, I'll offer you a coffee while you fill the papers. Get the guys across, make it easier, attractive. Actually, the banks will be more helpful to you if you are in the formal sector. Because then you need to increase your tax base. And that is the way to do it. So we need to move the informal sector into the bifurcation. That will be very helpful if we manage to do that. There are small things we need to do. And it's not like difficult.
The youth and leadership, young people's leadership question.
Good constitution, bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, South Africa is a difficult country for me, actually, because we were all hopeful. When you achieved your independence, that South Africa will be the locomotive which is going to pull all South Africa forward. You have the infrastructure. Eskom was a successful company producing more electricity than you need. We have wonderful highways, roads, this and that, and Mandela was a great leader. Mbeki was a good guy, and we said, fine. I mean, you guys do it. Unfortunately, in my view, ANC failed to deliver, and corruption was a huge issue. I recall we had a big conversation with our friends in the ANC, informal meetings, where we criticize, to their disbelief, we criticize the empowerment policy.
The black economic
empowerment. And I remember we had a discussion up to 4 o'clock in the morning. Very heated discussion because they could not believe that, I'm supposed to be, for Africans and that, and I'm not saying, you should not do that. Because my point was that will be a slippery road for corruption. And I'm not comfortable that if you want to create 5, 10 African millionaires or billionaires, that will mean anything for the normal people. Then it's a question of picking up winners. Who are those winners? It is friends of the people who have the power. to create the winners. This is going to result in a really bad something for the country. And my view, if you wanted to do something about ownership, just could go into a public sector. You have a fund which owned by the government, where these shares from all this corporation goes into, and whatever profit made is used for education, is used for clear purpose, something regulated by law. That would have been acceptable. And I said, look, you have this Gini coefficient. Let's see what happened over all these years. Did it improve? It did not improve. It's a failure.
And then we really unravel.
Okay, we have more questions. Let's start right down at the end, so we don't forget you down the end, and then we'll move this way.
Thank you so much. Evelyn Chino from Kenya.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Evelyn from Kenya.
Evelyn, okay.
Yes, I'm Evelyn from Kenya. I have a question with regards to how African countries can handle state capture, especially for public institutions, and also how then do you address that, especially when it comes to corruption? And for example, the anti-corruption commission, there isn't much that they're doing about it. And another issue is, on case in point, is the deal that our head of state made with Trump on reduction of tax exemptions for US tech firms.
Which deal, sorry?
We had a deal with President Trump, and our head of state had a deal to reduce taxes for tech funds in Kenya.
Tech funds.
Really,
I didn't know about that.
yeah,
Okay.
it really undermines the revenue collection that we're supposed
Yeah.
to get. So how do you now move around that when you don't have political will and you don't have goodwill and barriers?
Right. To the first part of your question, I think transparency. Transparency is very important. And actually, Kenya is one of the few very interesting countries, African countries, where you have a very thriving civil society. Very thriving civil society. And you guys are outspoken. And this is very healthy. I really like Kenya. And you're discussing, raising all these issues. Once you have transparency and once you have the space as civil society to speak out, that helps a lot in dealing with all this stuff. And this is democracy. And yes, Kenya has a number of issues of corruption, but not to my knowledge, not a single case of corruption was hidden for long. It always comes out. That's unique about Kenya. Any case of corruption, it has to come out. And it's state capture. I mean, look at US. We have a state capture in US now. What can we do?
So open corruption is step one.
Yeah, but in the US, corruption's legal.
Okay, Xavier?
Unpredictable.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Xavier. I'm Zambian. I work with the
From Zambia?
I'm from Zambia.
Yeah, works with
I work with the
OFS.
SOAS Foundation in New York. We obviously collaborated with your foundation before. I think with all the pessimism around what the state of African governance and the lack of political will, I'm actually very optimistic, but more intergenerational optimism. Meaning, I believe the young people in Africa offers the greatest hope to break the culture. You've been supporting I think you are an award.
Yeah.
I don't know the last president who got that. So I'm thinking maybe we should be investing and incentivizing young people, the current generation, to start getting interested in power and politics in Africa, so that we are preparing the field, even if current is negative. It's like a farmer, whether it rains or not, you have to soften the ground. So that when the opportunity arises, we have a ready generation. Because what will risk happening is we'll keep having the same type of leaders, even among young people, because they're diluted and they're not having that hope. So where do you think those sort of long fruits lie in us creating the new cadre of leaders? And maybe one of the awards, or maybe you should transfer it out to young people and not the current leaders.
You are spot on. You are absolutely spot. I cannot agree more with every word you said. We are increasingly shifting attention to the young generation. And actually, it is young people of Africa who keep us hopeful. I mean, who we sleep at night because of those guys, because we gave up on the old generation. Our generation did not succeed, failed. We have to accept that. Our generation failed. And we did not manage to do anything for the continent. Actually, we make it worse. But the young generation is much better informed than our generation. They are better educated, you know. I don't know, we have what we started to call it the Future Generation Network, because we had a number of scholars, a number of fellows. We tried to do something in that area. Actually, many people in SOAS, London from Lisbon, London Business School, with some people from Oxford, from Birmingham. We had fellowships in different places with the African Development Bank, with the WTO, with various places anyway. And those guys formed this Future Generation Network, and then quickly they changed its name to Now Generation. They said, well, the Now Generation, not the Future Generation. I said, fine. They have grown so fast. There are about 400 members there, and they have regular meetings. We have debates, they have interaction with our board, other people, but they're an independent organization. And in every conference we have, like in Marrakesh, last conference we had in June, they always have their own conference a day before our own conference. The whole conference, they have it themselves, and we do that. So, and that's something we think is very important. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was having a discussion with the president of this organization. They have a good structure, the executive office and this and that. And I was making some suggestions on how they need to move forward. And they also, we try to link with other young, because there's a number of young people organization. They need to create a pan-African. This organization have people from 45 countries, which is good. They need to link with more young people, etc. And I said, look, I mean, you need to start the movement in Africa of the young people who need to take over and sort this continent. So I agree with every word they said. I think that's very wise.
Can we take your question and then I'll come down there? Yeah.
My name is Rikiwe. I'm from Botswana.
From Botswana, okay.
I wanted your views on the Botswana government. They're planning on, well, they're proposing to buy a major stake in De Beers from Anglo American. So I wanted to hear your views on that. Is it a positive move or not?
So they have a plan to buy the diamond company? What?
De Beers, a stake in, the majority stake in De Beers.
I don't think they can. Where they got the money from?
Pardon?
Look, it's too expensive. I thought, I'm not very well informed, I'm sorry, but I thought their tactic was to say we're going to have a deal with another company to market our diamond. To put pressure on De Beers. And that was the previous government. And then they came back with better offers. De Beers made better offer for them to give them a bigger cut or something like that. So my understanding was they sorted out with De Beers to have a little bit more out of the... Of course, Botswana has done very well. It's the only country in Africa which use the natural resources wisely, honestly, for the benefit of their people. It's a wonderful example. And thanks to Masiri, actually. I think he's the best African president we had, in my view. Anyway, but I don't know what is the new development. You tell us.
No, Anglo American is selling their stake in De Beers.
Anglo American
is selling its stake in De Beers.
Anglo American owns most of De Beers. Botswana at the moment is a JV in Botswana with De Beers. And you're right, the initial strategy was to work with Namibia and the other producers to pressurize De Beers.
Yeah.
But now, and it looks like a game of chess, Anglo wants to get shot of De Beers, I presume because of the synthetics are going to kill diamonds. And they want to now con Botswana and most probably Namibia as well into buying.
Overpaying. To overpay.
Overpaying, into buying an asset that's, because synthetics now in China cover all of, even the gem grades.
There are people in the room who know more than me about this. I'm sorry. I'm not informed of this.
If it's coming from
That's one answer, don't do it.
American,
Yeah.
I'd say definitely no. You can trust them as far as you can throw them, and they're big and fat.
All right, go ahead, you've been waiting to ask. No. Both of you then, one and then the other.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. You have emphasized that Africa needs something like a United States of Africa. And Agenda 2063 and ACTA reflect similar ambitions. So my question then is, if African leaders know what to do, what is the missing incentive to get these things done? And how can we translate declaratory commitments into actionable impacts? By the way, please, I'm Doris Akomia from Ghana.
Okay. A sense of urgency. That's what's needed. There's no sense of urgency.
There you go, and then your question.
Hi, I'm Lamar from Morocco, and I want to talk about governance and specifically about responsibility, because I think that's a word we don't use often enough, and especially with public service truly demands, because personally I consider public service sacred. I'm a public servant through and through, and I think it calls us to a higher standard. It requires integrity, discipline, and a willingness to steward collective interests, even when doing so, constrain political leverage. And I think it also asks leaders to see beyond electoral cycles and beyond narrow sovereignty. And unfortunately, I think it does seem like it is the exception rather than the norm, especially on a continental platform. So if we take that responsibility seriously, we also have to be honest about the institutional realities in which we operate. I personally work at the African Union. I know I'm a bad guy.
Don't worry, nobody's perfect. It's okay.
Because if we look at it through a political economy lens, continental institutions are not weak by accident. For example, a strong fiscally autonomous African Union with real enforcement authority would limit member states' discretion over diplomacy and political maneuvering. And that carries a lot of real political costs. And many leaders actually benefit from institutions that remain rhetorically powerful, but structurally constrained. And so from the inside, I think what is really striking is the gap between language and the way it was designed, because at summits, as you mentioned, we invoke a lot of unity in speeches, yet the mandates of the African Union are actually very carefully restricted. And the delegation of authority remains tightly controlled. So there's a lot of what I call personally the simply Pan-Africanism lip service. And I think continental platforms are often used to advance the national positioning while avoiding the commitments that would genuinely strengthen them and the continent as a whole. So personally, I don't think it's a lack of seriousness, because this continental architecture reflects rational elite self-interest. And it is the way it is because it was intentionally designed to operate this way.
Intentionally designed to operate.
It was intentionally designed to operate this way. So that means that the real question is practical, and that's very personal to me, because I actually want to know who has the leverage to change it. Because I think for those of us who take public service seriously, and I think all of us do here, who want to be part of a generation of change makers who are actually going to be able to deliver stronger and more honest institutions, the question is not just a diagnostic, it's actually very existential. And if we believe in higher standards, and if we want to be part of that change, then we have to understand, where does the change actually originate? Is it within institutions, around them, against them? And where does responsibility actually need leverage?
Yeah, thank you. A very good statement. I treat it as a statement, not a question. And
Question, because I'm wondering where can actually, I personally can have change.
Where is that change going to come from?
I think what is needed, I think would be very nice. I mean, you start with yourselves here. If you, at the end of the course here, or the meeting, whatever you call it, you change emails and phone numbers, etc. Stay in touch and try to get more people. You need to start to work together, you know. And the problem is that all the thieves and the criminals work together. The good people don't work together, you know. We only get frustrated and express our anger. That's negative.
So you want a virtuous cartel?
Exactly. Yeah. We need to have our own cartel, guys. Yeah. So we really need to all work together and link with all the good people in other places, because you need to create this new wave of African leaderships which really support each other. And it will be very interesting. I mean, I know some African judges who turned down elections were some of our scholars, actually. And they had the courage to do that because they have support of peer groups, you know, because guys support each other. So of course you do it, you know. Why do you? And that gives the people the moral courage to stand forward. I think that will be practical, something very practical can do. Just work together, connect, and find also other people like that. Because unless we work together, we cannot change anything. We are just single voices shouting, and you know, then we go home. We get fed up and go home. And, that's, I think, what we need. We need action.
I think that's a very brilliant place to stop. Mo, thank you very much for your insights and your inspiration.
Thank you.